fully aware of the difference between ECB and Euro system, but it is for a future discussion. Ramon Tremosa.
Thank you very much. Welcome again, Mr. Draghi, President Draghi, to this Parliament. I have two questions. The first one, on January next year, the ECB will begin to reduce its bond purchases in order gradually to phase out the APP program. However, the end of purchases may have an effect on the risk premium of some of the more indebted countries of the Eurozone. Which reforms would you prioritize for those countries where public deficit is still up from 3% of their GDP? Do you think these countries are prepared in case there is a new recession? And I have another question about EDIS. We are discussing the European Deposit Insurance Schemes. You have always supported it, but I would like to ask you, how do you imagine the EDIS? What would be fundamental for you in order to ensure that it works properly? And in addition, finally, how can we reassure investors that EDIS will work well after the inconsistencies in the Italian and Banco Popular bailouts? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, let me answer the second question first. The prolonged discussion we had about EDIS has actually convinced everybody that this is a journey. It should not be put in place immediately because there are certain conditions that have to be verified. And risk reduction and risk sharing should go hand in hand. Part of the risk reduction also consists of harmonization of certain features that are critical to a banking union. One of them, for example, is the hierarchy of creditors. If countries keep on having different hierarchies, it's pretty clear that the union isn't complete. And so that is the other harmonization that's necessary, of course, is the resolution regimes. Again, it's a serious point to complete, to create a true banking union. But the other parts of risk reduction have to do with the NPLs we discussed before, and many other parts. And it's a journey, and in a sense, the Commission's proposal, in this sense, takes note that this is something that needs to be achieved step by step. As I said before, we shouldn't lose sight of the ultimate objective, which is a full-fledged deposit insurance. And in order to be sure that we are moving there, we're not trying to sort of avoid this, progress towards this objective should be clearly defined and clearly measurable and assessed with equal clarity. The other question is, are countries going to be ready for our policy stimulus reduction? Let's call it this way. Well, first of all, we haven't discussed this. Our recalibration we just decided last week was actually, when we announced that, the impact on financial markets was nil, because it was exactly measured on the improvement and calibrated according to, or having in mind, or taking note of the improvement in the economy. And still, the monthly flows were reduced to 30 from 60, which is, prima facie, a big reduction in the monthly purchases. So the reduction in policy stimulus, which may take place if the conditions that the Governing Council has stated for that will materialize, will take place in an environment where we shouldn't expect big changes. Having said that, however, let me remind that our mandate is price stability and not government support, fiscal deficit support or government support. Finally, there is a point you made which I entirely agree with, and prompts me to say that this is the time to also not only put your structures, and as I said in the introductory statement, the economic structures, do the structural reforms, but it's also the time to improve the budget situation without waiting only for that improvement that comes from growth and the low interest rates. And the main reason for that is exactly the one you hinted at, namely countries has to regain policy space in case there is going to be another recession or another crisis ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Dimitris Papadimoulis.
Thank you, President. Κύριε Draghi,